Chairman, Ranking Member, members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. Following Election Day 2024, Thomas Frank published an op-ed in the New York Times, suitably titled, "The Elites Had It Coming." Here's what Frank, who's a liberal, wrote. Everyone has a moment when he first realized that Donald Trump might well return, and here is mine. It was back in March, during a visit to the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery, when I happened to read a text beside an old painting. It described the westward advance of the United States as settler colonialism. I knew instantly where this nation was going. Some curator at one of the most exalted institutions had decided to use morally loaded academic keyword to address a visitor to the museum, say a family from the Midwest, and teach them a lesson about American wickedness, unquote. Teaching lessons about American wickedness is now the mission of the Smithsonian. It is the intent of the leadership, and it is precisely what they trained the staff to do. Secretary Lonnie Bunch III, Anthea Hardig, the director of the National Museum of American History and one of today's witnesses, and other museum leaders have commandeered the world's largest museum complex and admit that they intend to use it as a tool of societal transformation. This is not why Americans entrusted these institutions to them. Culture is not passed in the bloodstream. National museums are repositories of a nation's collective inheritance so that it can be transmitted to future generations. However, the Smithsonian's leadership has subverted this mission. Under Dr. Hardig, the History Museum has erased 2 words from the mission statement. The first is history itself. The word history had to go because Dr. Hardig preferred the museum to be, quote, very future-facing. The other word that disappeared in the new mission statement was America itself. Director Hardig said the term America should include, quote, the entirety of the Americas, not just our part of North America. She also said that loving America is complicated. Dr. Hardig, the director of the National Museum of American History, has deconstructed the museum's mission statement to borrow terms of the postmodernists who clearly guide her work. We're here today, as you said, because on July 4th, the White House released a devastating report focusing on Anthea Hardig's museum and the agenda that she pushes. Read the report and you will find that it is not just postmodernism that guides the leadership. They see the world in terms of power dynamics, who has dominance, and how to wrest it from them by dismantling the American narrative. This is deeply Marxist and Gramscian. In fact, the action toolkit that leadership used to indoctrinate staff at the Smithsonian for years even quotes approvingly from the works of the Frankfurt School's critical theorist, Herbert Marcuse. You can understand why Bunch began his tenure by tying the institution to 2 ideological and destructive movements, the 1619 Project and Black Lives Matter. BLM's main leader had made clear in 2019 that the group's goal was to, quote, keep dismantling the organizing principle of this society, unquote. Yet, in July 2020, as the country was burning, Lonnie Bunch wrote that he saw a moment of promise and possibility. Bunch said that the Smithsonian would legitimize the 1619 Project, except that historians from both sides of the spectrum decried the shoddy scholarship and inaccuracies of the 1619 Project. For ideological reasons, Lonnie Bunch put the Smithsonian's reputation at serious risk, and Director Hardig endorsed all of it, pledging to, quote, work to reframe the traditional celebratory narrative of U.S. history, unquote, to force a, quote, national reckoning. National reckoning from a history museum? This erasure of American culture must end now. As Stanley Kurtz wrote last week, you can say that the economy and foreign policy are more important than these cultural battles. Over the long haul, however, that is simply not true, unquote. You need to clean house and relieve all Smithsonian leadership of their duties. Also, authorize the yet-to-be-built Latino and women's museums, which will no doubt become 2 more incubators of anti-American grievances. We can see this in the precursor exhibits that they've had. Loving America is not complicated. Dr. Hardig is wrong. I implore you to do your jobs. Thank you for your attention.